they have live shows at 167 Aspen Place, Sunset Estates right beside Saskatoon, and it's the Rumble for all of the gold. Very limited seating is available. Go get your tickets now on their Facebook page. And now that I've shilled a pro wrestling show, hi, Crystal. Thank you for being part of the show.
Hi.
It's how I pay my wage.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. Thank you.
So before we actually begin the show, Crystal, you're a musician and a singer and pretty damn talented. But here's the thing. I treat everybody the same way no matter who I meet, and I ask them a stupid question of the week to start. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
The stupid question of the week is, what old person things do you do?
What old person things do I do? I go to sleep early. I love to sleep. I do. I love to go to sleep. I have a little 3-year-old, so she wears me out. So when I'm laying her down for bedtime, sometimes, most of the time, I fall asleep before her, and then I just stay asleep. I love it.
That's fantastic. I've got a 3-year-old too. I understand completely the reason for needing sleep. So as I was reading, I'm not going to try to pronounce your hometown, but you're from a Northern Ontario reserve. And can you pronounce the name properly for me?
Yes, absolutely. I'm from Wequemcong. It's called Wequemcong First Nations.
Awesome. Now, the thing about Canada is we relatively get along, right? And it's a pretty good place. Does that go into your music, or when you're writing, what type of feelings do you try to put in there? Because you've just switched, right? You've switched to jazz now.
Yeah, I switched to blues. Yes, I did switch to blues. But I approach it the same way. You know, I'm very honest. Everything that I write is stuff that I'm going through or that I have gone through at some point in my life. It's very honest and real, and you know, I definitely think who I am as a First Nations woman and as a Canadian, it comes out in everything I do, the way I write, the way I sing, the way I'm very personable with people, with my fans. I think it definitely shines through.
That's fantastic. I like your answer. So why the switch? Because you were a big country person for a while there, right? And now that you've switched to blues, why the switch?
You know, I've just been following my heart. You know, I grew up in a house where my parents listened to country music, but my older brother listened to a lot of blues music. And so every time, you know, I was home alone, I would practice singing it. I just kind of was curious. I was like, I wonder if I could do that. I wonder if I could sing like that. And then I would try it out and I'd be like, oh, I can. And then just something about it, I loved the way that it felt. So the whole time I had a very successful country music career. You know, out on stage, it was Patsy Cline, but at home, I was singing Etta James, you know, and so I just realized I just wasn't happy. I went to go record my third country album, and I was sitting there listening to the songs, and I realized that I didn't like any of them. I felt like I was trying to fit in. I felt like I was chasing radio, and I just didn't like the way that felt. So I took a break. I wrote music that meant something to me, and it ended up coming out as blues music. And then I released my first blues album 4 albums ago. And it felt like I was letting a bird out of a cage. And there's just no way I could ever put her back now.
That's fantastic. Do you think a lot of artists do that? That they chase sales more than anything else? Does that make sense? Do you think a lot of artists get stuck in that trap?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we get stuck in that little bubble because, you know, we're so grateful for the opportunity to work with whatever label or managers or producers we're working with. And, you know, I can't speak for everybody, but I know for myself, I was so thankful that I was a bit of a teacher's pet to the point, to a fault, you know, like I just wanted to make them proud of me because they're investing their time, their money, their name, you know, because if I fail, it's their name that's on the line as well, their reputation. You know, so we want to please everybody, and then we want to please the country music fans. So we try to do what's going on, what's popular at radio, because that's what we hope our fans are going to like. So it's definitely, you could get lost in it for sure. So I feel like I've found my way back to my voice, and it feels good.
That's awesome. I think a lot of people lose their voice, or they never find it to begin with, which is a sad, sad thing. And by voice, I mean their passion of some kind.
Absolutely.
So where do you want to go with the blues? Because let's face it, country music is the most popular form of music on the planet, which is strange. There's people everywhere that listen to country. Blues, not quite as big, but still a relevant thing. So where do you want to go?
Well, I believe that there's a resurgence happening. You know, I feel like there's this wave that's building up. It's a community, a mixture of blues slash Americana roots kind of thing going on. You know, you see it in bands like Tedeschi Trucks Band, Samantha Fish, Southern Avenue, Victor Wainwright, Sugar Ray Rayford. You know, these are people that I look up to and I admire. Joe Bonamassa. You know, I want to be a part of that wave. You know, I feel like that's where I fit. That's where I belong. That's where I make sense. You know, every style of music that is out there, it all came from the blues. You know, blues is the roots, everything else is the fruits. And that's a fact. And whether people realize it or not, their melodies, their ideas, it all stemmed from the blues. And so I kind of want to bring that back. I want people to realize that blues was the beginning of it all. You know, it had a big influence, anyways, on all the other styles of music, whether people realize it or not. So that's where I want to take it. You know, I want to be a part of that resurgence of making it a really important genre, because you're right. It's not as popular as it should be. It has kind of fell to the side and faded away. But I think this new generation of blues artists, writers, musicians, I think we're going to bring it back.
I can agree. My big thing with music of any kind is there has to be a message. I don't know how old you are. I'm 35. And when I grew up, the pop music of the day was the Britney Spears, it was Christina Aguilera, and there was no message in there except shake your booty and be, yeah, I'm not going to go there, but there was no real good message. Do you think that's your job as an entertainer, as specifically blues, right? It's always had that message. It's always had some message in it. And as a First Nation woman, do you find that as your job to bring a positive message forward with your music, or is it just to have fun?
For me, it's funny that you say that you love music with a message, because that's something that I say all the time. I'm a fan of music with a message. That's the kind of music that I like to record. I always have, when I was singing country music, and even now with my blues music. You know, my entire albums, they're not all, you know, like it's not, you know, it's a mixture. It's life. It's real life. So there's the message of heartbreak. There's the message of getting over heartbreak. There's the message of putting yourself first, loving yourself more than anybody else, you know, to the point of where you don't let somebody, you know, run you into the ground. You know, there's music with a message about what's going on in the world, you know, social awareness, whether it's issues with First Nations or, you know, something, you know, what's happening to the earth. And just being kind to one another. That comes out in songs like one of my songs, Whole World's Got the Blues. And even with my new album that we just put out, you know, there's a song on the album called Bigger Than the Blues. And we actually wrote that song about depression, and it just kind of wrote itself. You know, me and my husband had honest conversations about, you know, myself, I've suffered with depression since I was a young teenager. A lot of people I know have taken their lives due to depression. Some people were old friends of mine. Some people were musicians, fellow artists who, you know, the music business broke their heart and they couldn't take it. And that's what happens to some people, you know. And so we wanted to write a song where if somebody was feeling that way, when they listen to this song, this is going to make them want to fight a little more. You know, it's going to make them realize that you're bigger than your blues. You're bigger than whatever's bringing you down. And so you know, that's a perfect example of music with a message. And that's what I love to do.
That's awesome. I just need a moment to think about that. I apologize. The beauty of being live is that I have to have a reaction, and sometimes I just get wrapped up in who I'm talking to. What's your process for actually writing a song when it comes down to that? Yeah, I'll leave it there.
It's always different. You know, it depends who I'm writing with. You know, my favorite writing partner is my husband, who's my guitar player and also my producer. and we'll usually it comes from real conversations. You know, we're sitting around out on the deck, or he's cooking and I'm chasing after a 3-year-old, and I'll be like, hey, you know what I thought would be a cool song? And then I'll say the idea to him, and then, you know, it might be a couple days later he'll sit down with the guitar, and he'll be like, hey, I think this might go along with that idea you were talking about. And, you know, sometimes I'll go, yeah, that does. Or sometimes I'll be like, no, I don't like that. And we'll just kind of go back and forth, you know, because we're a married couple, you know, we'll take our times with writing a song. We don't set an appointment and sit down because we're trying to balance everything. Um, but when I write with other writers, it's always different. You know, some people will come to the house and we have an appointment and we sit down. They'll have different ideas of maybe something they want to write about, a subject, and then I'll have melodies in my head that I come prepared with. So I'll sit with my guitar and I'll play the ideas to them, and they pick which one they like, and I pick which hook that they've written, that idea that they've come up with that I like, and then we run with that and go from there. And then I write with some people who are not in the same city, so they'll send me loops, drum loops that they've come up with, ideas they have, because I write for other artists as well. We write, you know, everything from country to rock to pop. And then so they'll send me an idea, and then I'll write on it and send it back. So it's always different. It just depends on the situation, but you know, it's always a lot of give and take.
That's awesome. Now, you said you have a 3-year-old. Is that your only child, or is there more?
She's my only child that I gave birth to. I raised I raised two ready-mades.
Oh,
When I met my husband, I call them my ready-mades. I don't like to call them my stepchildren. They're my ready-mades. They were my kids. When I met my husband, he was a single dad. They were 8 and 10 years old, and I raised them. And now they're in their early 20s,
holy
and
cow.
they're on their own now. They have flown the coop, and so we had 4 years by ourselves, and we were living like college kids again, going to the beach. We'd walk into the mall and like drop like $1,000 of shopping between the two of us because we had nothing to spend our money on. And then after 4 years, I said to my husband, I'm getting bored of this. I need something to do. I need, you know, I want a kid. And I said, you know, and he's older than me. So, you know, I said, do you feel like starting over? And he said, let's do it. So here we are. Now she's 3 years old, and we're happier than, you know, that we're very happy. This is exactly what we needed.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I remember those days when me and my wife first got together. We used to go spend $900 on books all the time, and books. Who needs $900 in books? Like, but I get it. But that was 15 years ago. Now we got 3 kids and can't afford soup.
I totally hear you. It's like I do all my shopping for her, and it's so funny. I shop relentlessly for clothes for her, and she runs around the house, you know, half naked. So,
Yep.
so much for that.
Do you find that it's changed your career? Do you find that, not that they're a hassle, because they're a blessing, obviously, but do you find it's harder to be a performer, to be out on the Saturday night, to be doing the concerts everywhere? Is it harder for you?
It's harder in the sense of where, you know, I'm definitely more distracted. You know, I love the stage. That's my favorite part, is singing on stage. You know, that's the thing I always look forward to. And then after the show, hanging out with everybody. But it's definitely changed in the sense where, you know, I wait till absolutely last minute to leave to the show. And then as soon as I'm off the stage, I'm like, okay, I got to go. My kid's at home. You know, and even while I'm on stage, I'm thinking about her, and I miss her, and I'm lonely for her. I'm very, you know, we take her everywhere we go, right? So the only time we're ever away from her is the length of time of a show. So she's toured with us since she was born. Every album that I've recorded since she was born, I've held her in my arms while I was singing my vocal parts. You know, and then now even when we go on tour, sometimes you know, sometimes she doesn't like the babysitter, or sometimes she just really wants mommy. So she'll come on stage with me. So actually, in the past year and a half, she's actually become part of the show, which is definitely different than what we used to do. But I think it's a really good different. The fans love it. And it's to the point now when she's not on stage with us, people are like, where's Jaja? So, you know, our show is changing in that way, but I think it was time for something different. You know, she brings a lot to our show. And, you know, we did our Christmas show. She did 15 shows out of the 17 dates that we had. And she did two songs. She did Jingle Bells and Santa Claus is Coming to Town. And we don't make her, you know, only if she feels like it. And then if not, she'll just lay around on the stage, and we're cool with that.
The beauty of that is it goes back to the songs and making a connection with people, right? I think that yeah, during COVID we've had like talk show hosts have their kids pop in and all the rest of it, right? But the truth is that shows a person that they're actual people. You know what I mean? And it shows that you're an actual human being, not just some star on the stage just blah 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 being plastic and everything, right? So
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah, people really enjoy it. You know, we've done a couple music videos. I did one for actually just for this new album. We did a song called my first official single was called When It Comes to Love, and it was a song that me and my husband wrote about fighting for love, you know, hanging in there for the real thing. And so it just made sense. The music video features, you know, me and my husband outside playing with our little girl, and you know, that's what it's all about now.
It is. It is. I love it. I really love it. By the way, Church House Blues, right? That's the name of the new album coming out. Because I'm gonna be honest, sometimes I forget to promote people. But Church House Blues.
Okay.
And people can find you at crystalshawanda.co, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Awesome. So it's not a .com, everybody. It's not a .ca. It's a .co.
No, somebody hijacked my .com name many years ago, and they want to charge me $1 million to get it back. So I said, just have it.
And they can fly a kite.
So we're crystalshawanda.co, and people can check me out on Facebook, Instagram, and my YouTube channel. I'm very interactive with my fans. It's my favorite thing to do besides playing music and spending time with my family.
So I want to get into society now. As a first, are you okay with getting into weird things
yeah, absolutely,
like the movements that are happening? As a First Nation woman in Canada, and as a white guy, I'm going to be honest, I'm white, so I'm on the bad end of this. But when you look at what's happening in the U.S., do you think that same movement's going to start moving up to Canada as well, and be? I don't know. Does that make sense? Like the Black Lives Matter? Because let's face it, in our country, First Nations people have been downtrodden for a long time, right? So as a First Nations woman, what do you hope for our communities together?
You know, I think the movement has been happening. You know, I think people have been making strides. You know, if you look back at Idle No More, and you know, people trying to raise awareness about missing and murdered Indigenous women. You know, people have been trying to make those strides. You know, the support isn't always there. Sometimes I think sometimes these movements like Black Lives Matters, I think sometimes they're misunderstood. You know, like some people will say all lives matter. Well, yes, of course, all lives matter. That's not what people are saying. You know, they're saying that, you know, if anything, Black Lives Matter is a distress call. It's like, hey, we need some support. We need your help. We're asking for your help. We're asking for your support. And it's the same thing with Indigenous people and our issues that we're trying to bring to light. You know, we're asking for help. We're asking for support. You know, nobody's ganging up on and saying one race is worse than the other. You know, for me, I come from a very mixed family, and my husband, my little girl, you know, she's mixed. My husband he's half white, and so all my in-laws they're a mixture of white and black, actually, because my husband's family is white and black. So you know, we are all colors of the rainbow in our family. And you know, I get along with everybody. You know, I'm a firm believer that you know, it's how we treat each other. You treat me kindly, I'll treat you kindly. And I think it's important to support these movements, because no matter what color you are, like even if you're white, you don't want racist, hateful people, you know, ruling the world. I don't think. You know, the world would be.
That's absolutely true.
You know, the world would be a very boring place if everybody was the exact same color and the exact same, acting this very same way and believing the same things. I love learning about all kinds of cultures beyond my own. Traditions and cultures of people all over the world. You know, and I'm not done learning. You know, sometimes I'll learn about a new country of somewhere on the other side of the world. I'm like, oh wow, and who lives there, and what language do they speak? And you know, I think all these things just add texture and and beauty to our world, you know. And I think that's what it's all about. But it's I think these movements are important because they're going to bring the walls down, and they're going to bring us to a better place of understanding, and that's going to be a real good place to get to.
That's awesome. I do apologize for the weird question, but I like to know the person behind all the masks that we put on. And I don't get to talk to where I'm at, I don't get to talk to very many First Nations people. Well, I do. I've got a few people that work in certain resources and stuff, but
I totally
largely
get it. It's always good to hear different perspectives from different people.
Yeah. And sadly, a lot of people aren't enlightened in that way to understand that we're all just human beings. If you cut me, I'm going to bleed the same color you do. It's all the same, right? And
Absolutely.
we all have our struggles.
Absolutely. Everybody's struggling. And, I think we all want the same thing. We want to keep our families safe and happy and healthy. We all have dreams that we're chasing. We're all just trying to put food on the table and a roof over our heads and lights on in our house and heat and all those basic essentials. Sometimes I think, when we watch the news and we're on social media all the time, I think because we're always scrolling, so we're always getting fed information. I think because of that, sometimes it overwhelms people. And then I think sometimes people get confused in that. And I think sometimes it makes people not want to be enlightened because they're just tired of hearing about it. But it's like one quote that I saw. Well, if you're tired of hearing about it, imagine how tired we are of experiencing it.
Living it,
Because I've experienced racism throughout my life, throughout my personal life, and within the music business. But it's like my dad always taught me: don't let that take up your space. Focus on the good people. Focus on the positive things. Because anything negative is just going to slow you down from your journey and what you're trying to accomplish in life. Stay focused. So that's what the advice I would give to anybody, no matter what color you are. Just stay focused on your family, your career, and try to be a good person to everybody.
That's awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for being open about that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just so you know, the show lasts about 25 minutes, 30 minutes, anywhere in there. Where do you want your album coming out? It's called Church House Blues. And what's the date? It's released already? Am I wrong on that?
Yes, you're right. It's released already.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. And what's your favorite song out of them all? I know that's a hard question, right? But what's your favorite?
It's funny. I think my favorite song is actually a cover. It's not one of the ones I wrote. It was a song we decided to cover. Tragically Hip's New Orleans is Sinking, but we did a lot differently. I've been like a lot of other Canadians, I've been a fan of Tragically Hip forever. I always say their music is the soundtrack to my misspent youth. And I've always loved the bluesy undertones that are in that song. And so we just went into the studio and we tried it on, and we left it really raw and bare bones. It's just me and my husband on guitar, our friend Dave Rowe on bass, and our friend Lewis Winfield on drums. And actually, he just had one big bass drum. And I just started singing, and they just followed me. We didn't even chart the song. They listened to the song one time. They listened to me sing it one time. And then we played it. And I didn't want them to hear the original because I didn't want it. I don't want us to copy it because nobody can do it like Tragically Hip. They, all the guys in that band, they had their own way of phrasing everything, their instruments. And so we just went in and did it. And, then when we were done, the guy said, it sounded like halfway through, you went through some kind of transformation. I was like, good. That's what I was after, I fought for that song. Not everybody wanted it on the album, but I really did. And I'm really glad we've been getting a lot of great feedback on it. People love it. And for me, it was important because it was kind of a nod to growing up where I grew up as a Canadian, because I think as Canadians, we have a sense of ownership over Tragically Hip.
We do.
There's a lot of great bands out there, but the Tragically Hip is ours. And, and whether you grew up, driving around the back roads of some reservation or some small town in the prairies or the bush roads of BC or along the beaches of the East Coast, Tragically Hip is the one thing most of us can agree on.
Yep. I always like to think of it as the trifecta. There's Rush for the rockers. There's the hip for well, I'm not sure what they'd even consider poppy, more poppy, and there's Stompin' Tom Connors. And
Yes.
those are the three Canadians
Totally,
that everybody
right?
agrees on.
And it's like they're ours, you know.
Yeah, you can't have them.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, before I end off, I want to thank you for being here. Everybody, check out the link that's scrolling down there. If you're listening, crystaljoanna.co. Go. Can people pick up the album? Is that actually possible, or does it have to be like Spotify?
You can go on, you can stream it on Spotify, and you can buy it on iTunes, and you can also order it. Like if you just like Google like where to order it, people have been ordering it somehow. People have been messaging.
So it's an
me,
actual
I just got
CD?
your CD in the mail. I'm like, oh great. So people are managing to find it and get physical copies of the CD. So it is out there. So you know, just do a little searching. I know it's weird times right now. You know, we can't go out to the store and just pick up our favorite albums right now. So we really, as artists, we really appreciate all you people out there who are taking those extra steps to buy our music. Thank you so much. Buy music, buy music, buy music. Not just mine, everybody's. We need it right now.
The last question I always ask is, other than this podcast or show or whatever you want to call this thing that I do, what's one thing you've done today to make yourself happy?
One thing today that I've done to make myself happy is play with my little girl. I love to spend the first 2 hours just playing with her, whatever she wants to play. I do voices for all her little characters. I get real into it. I try to nail the voices. I've always wanted to be a voiceover actor, so that's what I do my practicing with her, and it's just fun. I love to see her little personality develop, and that's what I get to see it the most. That's
awesome. I don't know how many Canadian voiceover people there are. I think we all have a weird accent, like everybody across the country.
I love to do voiceovers. All her little characters, like the Disney characters, like I try to talk like them and whatever. I don't know if I'm doing a good job, but she seems to like it.
Awesome. Crystal, I want to thank you so much for being on. We end the show in one way. I'm going to ask you to wave bye-bye to everybody. Everybody go buy Crystal stuff. Bye, Crystal. Have a good day.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Thanks for squeezing me in today. I appreciate it.